Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Outcast. I am your host, Wolf, and I am joined by...
HC.
And we are here to cover RWBY Volume 8.
How late to the punch are we with this one?
Just about a week, I would say, because everything went free last week, if I'm not mistaken, to watch. So about a week, maybe two at most.
Okay, so not bad, all things considered. Like we hung longer the waits, but Volume 8.
We were many years behind if you consider Volume 1.
Yeah, that is very true.
So we made good time in catching up. But yeah, Volume 8.
Yeah, Volume 8. So should we kind of just jump into it, or do you want to kind of give a
let's give our, let's give our non-spoiler thoughts first, like we normally do, so that way people don't have to watch us for an hour. They could just come in for the first 5 minutes like they do and then leave. I know what you people do. I watch the analytics. I see you.
Please come back. We need the views.
I mean, we're just lonely, but that too.
Yeah.
That one sounds better, less desperate. Go with that one.
But anyway, to the people who are new to this and just found us by chance, then, first of all, welcome. Great to have you here. But the second thing is that, just so you know, Wolf is the RWBY guy out of the both of us. Like, he's
I'm the fan.
one. He's the fan. He's the one that suggested we'll do this in the first place, and he's the one that's in touch with the fandom and stuff. I am more of a casual fan. The only reason I started watching this is because Wolf told me, let's do this for the podcast. And, not that I'm putting the show in bad regard or anything, because I'm going to do plenty of that with this volume.
Oh, boy.
But the thing is, I enjoy the show, but I'm not into the whole thing. I'm a casual fan.
Yeah, casual viewer, and, HC is the casual viewer here, and I am the fan here. So if you are a fan of RWBY and you've watched it, this is your chance to hear what, a random fan's opinion, but also a bit more of what the casual, of what a casual viewer would think, right? Of what, you could expect to hear from a more casual audience, potentially. And that's why I thought this was interesting and enjoyable to do, and why we have continued to do it.
Yeah, like we reached Volume 8. We didn't stop yet, so that probably means we're having fun doing this. So
hopefully.
With that said, you're leading this one. What did you think about this season? Non-spoilers first.
So, for those of you who watched our Volume 7 coverage, listened and watched to our Volume 7 coverage, I came into Volume 8 very, I think the word is reticent, right? I was unsure if they made, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I talked about Volume 7. I felt like they rushed through some things, and I felt like they might have introduced Salem too soon. And I was going into Volume 8 very much on the fence of, Volume 7 is going to heavily depend on how well Volume 8 does, and I'm not sure if they made a lot of the right choices with Volume 7, at least for me personally. And I came into Volume 8, I watched the first few episodes, and, I said also, right, I felt like Volume 8, they should probably do this whole siege thing very quickly, get it done, get it over with, and then immediately the rest of the volume be devoted to recovery and recovering from the loss, whatever that might be, right? They did not do any of that. Very clearly they did not do any of that. The siege was a lot more long, a lot more drawn out, and it lasted the entire volume, more or less. And I watched the first few episodes, and I was like, okay, still not sure. They've not won me over yet. Not sure if this is a good idea. They're playing it very slow compared to their very fast-paced in Volume 7. And I would say round about episode 4, maybe 5, in that area, I started to say, okay, they're winning me over. This pace is working for them. It's doing good. I don't see anything wrong here. This is going well. I'm actually, this is what they've chosen to do is working for what they're doing, right? And from there, it just, in my opinion, the volume continued to pick up. until we got to, if I'm not mistaken, which was episode 7, which was basically the mid-season hiatus for people like myself who watched episode to episode. And after that point, I would honestly say, we came back on episode 8 after about 2 months, and it was just boom. Like they really stepped it up, I felt. And it was just, in my opinion, very good episode after very good episode after very good episode. So overall thought, I enjoyed this volume. I think it was an exceptionally well done volume of RWBY.
Mm-hmm. Well, do I have contradictions, for lack of a better term? But the thing is, to those who didn't listen to Volume 7, I did say that I didn't find Volume 7 necessarily bad, but I felt like we just had a bunch of episodes where nothing happened. We ended the volume the same way we started. I didn't feel like anything moved along in the grand scheme of things. We got new characters, we got maybe some relationships developed, but in terms of the overall plot, it was a filler season, which felt like it was building up to this one.
That's fair.
And then we get to this season, which again, for like the first half of it, maybe even a bit more, I still felt we're not going anywhere. We again just felt like we're doing things, and there's this feeling to me that as more volumes came out, they just kept adding more and more characters, and I'm not sure if they're keeping some of those characters on because they're actually popular in the fandom, or if they just decided we added new characters, so we might as well give them something to do. But there are so many characters, and the plot is jumping around from this group to this group to this group to this group, and it starts to feel so disjointed and so all over the place that it was actually kind of hard to keep following the overall narrative. And not only that, though, I think just because they have so many other characters to focus on, the main 4 or 7, depending how you're looking at it, are suffering for it. And on that note, they did my gal Blake dirty in this season. She is freaking pointless. She doesn't do anything. She's a background character. What did you do to her?
It's so interesting to hear you say that, because that is, from my understanding and from my experience, it's not the Blake part, but the show has too many characters part. That's a general complaint you hear by a lot of people within the fandom too, right? That they have too many characters. That a lot of people felt like the Aesops were unnecessary with this season. Robin was unnecessary this season. The Happy Huntresses was unnecessary this season. Like, a lot of these characters people felt were unnecessary, unneeded, and why are they here?
Like, again, not giving to anything away, but there's this group of kind of bad guys from the previous volume, like I don't remember their names. The group with the girl that runs fast.
The Aesops.
Yeah, the Aesops. Like,
the military people.
Yeah, them. I couldn't give 2 shits about them after the previous volume, and yet they keep showing up. And again, not giving anything away, but there's supposed to be like a big dramatic thing with them at some point, and it's like, it could have been great if, one, I actually gave a shit about them, and if I got to know them. I didn't do any of those things. And 3, if you cut this out, you'd have more time to actually focus on the main characters, because the people who are watching this show, they're not watching it for the Aesops or for that colonel that employs Winter, or necessarily for Cinder's backstory. Or for Cinder's backstory. We are here for RWBY, Blake, Glade, and I can't believe I forgot her name. God damn it.
Weiss?
Yang.
Yang, there you go.
Yang.
Glade.
And Weiss. Yeah, I don't know because her hair is gold, so I thought gold. I don't know.
Glade.
But for
I
some
like
reason,
that.
she's the one. For some reason, she's the one name that I keep forgetting. Then yeah, Ruby. Why?
But
Yeah,
you like
yeah,
Bumblebee,
exactly.
though, and yet you forget
Yeah,
half
yeah.
of that relationship's name.
And it's sad because I actually ship it because of Blake, but whatever. The point is, we have these four, we have Jean and all these other characters, and it's like, yeah, the show started with them. Why can't I focus on them? These are the ones that I'm invested. These are the characters I'm invested in. Let me see them. Let me see them actually develop and stuff. And this will come back later in terms of spoilers, but I just feel like they don't know what to do with these characters anymore because they keep putting new characters in there with no reason.
That's, again, this is, we'll hold that thought. So, overall opinion was that you wished there was what? That there was more moments for the main four to shine? And that this volume didn't give you that?
I wish there was more chance for the main 4/7 to actually shine. And I also wish that, stuff actually moved along. And this is something I actually want to ask you about because we talked about this before. Obviously, Monty, the creator of the show, passed away between volumes 2 and 3. And people are, but he did supposedly leave notes to where he wanted the show to go after this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's this thing that, I did some research after I finished this volume, and apparently volume 9 is already confirmed and is already in production and stuff.
Yes, very well along from what I understand.
Yeah. But so here's my question: that if Monty really left, kind of a roadmap for where he wanted certain plot points to go, where he wanted some things to go, it feels like the writers, whoever is in control of this show right now, that they're just afraid to get to this point, and whatever it is, they're just doing everything in their power to keep us away from that.
See, again, that's so interesting that you say it that way, because I disagree. I feel that they're, again, right, like I've spoken about it many times, I feel RWBY moves too fast for its own good, right? And I feel like they're sprinting to get to that point, to get it done. But also, yes,
this is.
I feel like they're moving very quickly, in my opinion.
If I may quote a character from another anime, the S team, the S must stand for slow motion because nothing is going on. But okay, fair enough. I'm not judging.
It's also, I think it's worth asking. Have you seen any of Monty's other work?
No.
Because he's worked on, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, he worked on an animation thing that you can find on YouTube, I think, in some places still. That was basically like this fan animated thing, and it was just him having fun, and there was a little bit of story there, but stuff going on. I think it was Dead Fantasy is what it was called. I'm probably got it wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments. I cannot remember to save my life. But also he worked on different stuff for Red vs. Blue as well, mostly as animation, right? He never, for Red vs. Blue is when he came into Rooster Teeth, and a lot of the stuff he did there was just animation stuff. He never did storytelling. RWBY was his, I think, first big foray into storytelling. And great person. I'm not going to speak ill of the dead here, but Monty.
Hey, it's not just because he created something we like doesn't mean he didn't have missteps,
flaws,
especially for a first attempt.
And it's worth pointing out, right? Like, the more you hear some of the crew behind RWBY who were there with Monty originally, the more you hear them talk. Monty had a big problem of adding things in last minute and just kind of running with it. And simply put,
he was improvising.
Yes and no. Like, it's what he wanted to do. It's what he had intended to do. But also, it wasn't. He would very much change it up at the last second and do something different. Like, for instance, Neo was a last-second addition. She was not meant to be in the show at all, and they wanted her in there, and she was supposed to be voice acted even, and
Oh,
she wasn't, and so they weren't going to have her in there, but Monty decided, hey, mute person, she's mute, she's in the show now, done, because he really wanted to animate her, if I'm not mistaken.
okay.
Like, that's the story behind that. And that's not the only thing that had that happen with it, right? Like, there's many different things. There are things that, they have been in there since the start, but they did change a lot when it came to Monty, because he very much was someone who would change things on the fly. Then some of the crew would come in the next day and find that Monty had been working all through the night, because he very much, was someone who overworked himself a lot. And they would
Yeah.
come in to see, oh yeah, I made these changes here, and like, you didn't talk with any of us? Nah, they're fine. I've already done all the work, so it's great. It's like,
Oh,
that's what he would do. Like, great person, wonderful person. They've created, and he created a genuinely wonderful show, in my opinion. But you're not wrong in the fact that, the writing definitely has a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? It can come off as something that is very... I lost the word, damn it. I've completely lost the word.
actually, actually talking about this, there's something that, again, when I said I'm not a casual fan, this actually connects to something that I finished this season,
Mm-hmm.
and I was Googling to see if there would be a volume 9, which I found out that there is.
Yes.
And then there was this entire thing that I noticed that despite volume 9 already being greenlit while this volume was still in production, apparently they did the final bit of writing for volume 8 like a day or so before the final episode came out.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, either they completed the animation at that point, and somebody probably said it as a joke that they're probably just going with their first drafts for every episode.
The way... I don't know if that's true. The way I
No,
understood it, the writing for Volume 8 was done well before the final episode aired.
I don't want to say, oh yeah, like these people in all the phones, they know what's up, what's going on. It's like, but there are some points where it actually feels like it's a first draft, and I'll get to what I mean when we actually get into spoilers.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, again, like, it's very interesting, and it's very... It's just interesting to hear you say that. I just simply put, it's just interesting to hear you say that from a casual viewing experience. But I do get where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. So I guess, with that said, let's jump straight into spoiler territory and just kind of talk some of our thoughts. So from this point on, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen RWBY Volume 8, spoilers ahead. Go watch the show, then come back. Mm-hmm. That is your warning. 3, 2, 1.
1.
Still here?
Still here? Good. Everyone dies.
Not wrong.
Yeah, that's... Actually, if we kind of talked about this, can I just say something regarding that plan before, and we'll go back?
I want to very quickly jump on something you mentioned, right? You mentioned that you didn't care about, like, you talked about the big thing with the Aesops and, their whole big fight and them trying to, and, you see Harriet, still hurting over Clover's death and apparently another member they lost, right? And you hear, and, Harriet's going to blow up Mantle because that's what she was ordered to do. And, you see some members of the Aesops trying to stop her. And you have a big fight there with her, Crow, Robin, and all that, right? All that's going on. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you just didn't care, right? Because...
Yeah, I didn't care.
Their story wasn't something you really got involved with. Those characters weren't something that was really told to you and given to you that you had time with to really care about. Which, that's understandable. And you said if you would have dropped all that, that you could have had more time devoted to the main cast. So I'm curious to ask, in dropping that... How would you have portrayed the conflict between? And you also mentioned that no one watches this show for General Ironwood either, which, Oh boy, we'll get to that. I'll get to that one in a
No,
minute.
it's not necessarily that nobody watches the show for him. Like he is a character that's been around. He does move a few things, but at the same time, it's also they're also gonna give kind of giving it this thing that but that aside from Salem, basically from Salem's group, he's like a secondary villain,
Mhm.
and I feel like we don't need another villain. We have Salem to deal with. Like, I don't need another general that's like, yeah, I get what you're trying to do, but what you're doing is actually wrong, and I'm going to stop you in order for so that we could stop Salem the right way. It's just shut the fuck up, work together for Christ's sake.
So,
It's not hard.
but my interest here and my question for you is, what would you have? Do you have anything or any particular example you would have replaced that with? Like, would you have continued? Would you have gone along? Would you? Would you have? It sounds like you wouldn't have, but would you have found a different way to represent the conflict between Team RWBY and Ironwood, or would you have done something different?
The thing is that because again, this is one of those things that this was carried over from Volume 7, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of
Yeah,
started in Volume 7, and then we got the
yeah,
bigger
it
end of it
started
here.
there, and I remember not liking it in that volume either. And I think I also said that they went too overboard with the political themes in that.
Hmm.
So what I'm saying here is that there's this entire thing, and this is another problem I have with this volume, that some plot points feel like they repeat from volume 7.
Hmm.
That there's this entire thing that Ironwood is focusing on the bigger picture and trying to stop Salem, but Team RWBY and our heroes basically are focusing on stuff on like protecting this city first, like also making sure that the little guy will go away, that there won't be any casual unneeded casualties to this war.
Yeah.
So, so with that said, instead of just being at each other's throats and kind of like Ironwood going up is that like, of course Ruby will go there to save them, and telling Winter like, your sister is our enemy and you should like take care of her. And it's like, work together. Like, you know what I would be interested in after the whole season of just saying that both of them being on each other's throats doesn't work. Actually, sit down and think, what can we do in order to find a compromise?
Hmm.
Because again, we have Salem, and Salem's people are all over both sides. So it's not like there's a three-way war here. It's just that one side keeps fighting between each other and refuse to cooperate.
Well, I think again, the idea, right, though, is to represent how easily humanity can be divided, right? Because you have Osmond's
But
entire
we
goal
had,
is to
but
unite humanity, right?
yeah, but at the same time, we had this problem in Volume 7, so let's actually move the thing forward. I'm not saying that start the first episode with it, but like show some sort of progression, show some sort of character development.
Hmm. I. Hmm. It's interesting. I don't think you're inherently wrong, but I do disagree with you. I think there is some of that shown, but I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I think you're not wrong in the fact that it does get lost in the message, right? Right? Like, because there's just
Mhm.
again, there is a lot of moving pieces to consider now. And I think they did kind of put themselves in a bit of a predicament when they added so many different characters to keep track of, so many different moving
And then,
pieces. It muddies the message a little bit.
mhm. And then there's also this thing that you know, and seeing how we're not really doing this episode by episode,
No, no.
so let's just when I said that they kind of refuse to let characters develop,
Hmm.
here's something I kind of noticed. So there's this talk, and man, I can't believe I forgot some of their names. Like the Ren and what's the girl's name with the hammer again?
Nora.
Nora. Yes, there we go. Ren and Nora. So the thing with them is that they are basically a ship, and I think it's been established pretty early on that they have a thing going on because they're the childhood friends grow up to be lovers kind of
So
thing.
they don't have a thing going on, but Nora wants a thing going on, and now Nora doesn't want a thing going on.
Here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. So
I think I know where you're
it's a,
going with this.
the maybe we'll see. But for the record, I don't have a problem with the ship
No,
being
no,
a thing.
no.
Okay, I
Yeah.
don't have a problem. The characters are also fun and stuff, and I think it would actually be good for them to take that step. Again, character development. This thing that shows do. But and it's kind of like you said, it's kind of been implied for a long time that like Noam wants it more, but Ren doesn't really care, and this is something this season also kind of dwells into, that he has a hard time opening up. But then there's this scene where he actually tells Noah that he loves her, and it's like, okay, this is interesting. And then Noah tells them, I wanted this for so long that I kind of forgot what Noah without Ren is like. So if it's okay with you, I want to find out what I am without you before we jump into this.
Yeah, which I would say is perfectly fine. But
yeah, on the one hand, it's fine, and I get that. It's good that when you're in a relationship, it's good that you also have your own thing going on, and you're not just depending on that relationship. This is very important. I'm not saying this is wrong.
Oh, sure.
But in terms of this specific show, and in terms of what the show showed me, okay, taking into account everything we've been to up to this point, I think both Noah and Ren are just have developed enough on their own, not necessarily in connection to each other, but also had plenty of time to develop their own fighting skills, their own fighting styles, their own interests, their own journeys and their wishes for what they want to do and personalities up until this point. And the only reason that they didn't actually let them take that step in that moment is because this is supposed to be their end game. This is what they're building up to, and they're just not ready to reach that point yet. I'm not talking about the characters, I'm talking about the writers. Because also notice, again, this is like a small moment that when Blake and Yang actually meet, they have this moment of, they're touching forwards and stuff, and it's like, this is probably the most popular ship, I think.
Yeah.
One of them.
Well, yeah.
And
yeah.
why do you think they're not just letting them be together when they had 6 volumes of building that up, and then they had to give us all that bullshit Yang is suddenly terrible at flirting thing? It feels like they're dragging this because they are saving it for the end of the show. This is supposed to be our end. This is our end game, and it's honestly kind of annoying to me that the characters can't grow until the show ends, or at least the writers are not letting them grow and take chances and actually develop relationships of any kind until the show ends. And this is just on the ship's part. There's one part that I would say, I'm jumping to the end here. I'm sorry, just I want to get this out.
No, go ahead.
So they established at some point that Penny, who's the Winter Maiden, she would just power she'll transfer the power of the Winter Maiden to Ruby. Okay?
If RWBY killed her, yeah.
Yeah, and this is an idea they're playing around with.
Well, that Penny. Not so much an idea that anyone's playing around with, just an idea that Penny put towards RWBY to solve her problem, which we'll get to.
That idea, however, was put out there. This is an idea that was brought up. They talked about it, and then at the end of the season, for no reason, it's Winter that becomes the Winter Maiden. And it's like, hold up. Like, aside of the fact that Winter Maiden, it fits. Remove that bit. Was there any indication ever that Winter could become the Winter Maiden?
Yes.
Was there? Was there?
Yes. So this goes back to earlier volumes when they stated that if a maiden dies, the maiden powers transfer to whoever was last in their thoughts. Mm-hmm. That's something that was very clearly stated in past volumes. But I think you'd be forgiven because you're talking about something that was mentioned way back in volume 3.
This is a thing that's like a few volumes ago, and excuse me that I don't remember everything one to one.
Completely fair.
But at the same time, they put this thing that if you were never going to give that position to RWBY, why even mention it? Because all I see here is a missed opportunity to actually make RWBY matter, to actually make RWBY develop, to actually have some sort of a change in her. Because the previous volume did this too, that she seems to be like, oh, my optimism always brings, bad situations and stuff. And then everyone tells her, no, your optimism is what keeps us strong. And, okay, it's fine the first time, not so fine when you're repeating it. But then they're also building up that, let the main character have something going into the next volume.
Well, RWBY has silver eyes, though.
Yeah, she does, but they don't really do anything with it.
This is fair. This is true. They don't use it a lot. That is fair.
So
I think in Volume 8 it is used twice.
I didn't count. Though it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But again, it's just. It wasn't in regards to RWBY, but somebody said that, like, this is like, it's said, what Chekhov's gun is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this feels like they established a gun in Act 1, and then in Act 3 just used a completely different gun that just happens to be in someone's back pocket. Well, this is what it feels like.
I feel like, right, that... I'm going to be interested. It's going to be interesting to see when Volume 9 comes out, because I feel like what they've set up for themselves is Volume 7, Volume 8, and Volume 9. And it's worth mentioning, right? Volume 9 is going to, in fact, be much shorter than Volume 7 or 8 or any other volume because of the ending, because of Volume 8's ending here, right? And we'll get to that in a bit. But I feel like Volume 7, Volume 8, and Volume 9 are going to heavily depend on one another. That I feel like having a definitive opinion of any of the volumes now may change once Volume 9 comes out. And I feel like Volume 9 is going to end this little arc. And I think it's interesting because RWBY's never done arc storytelling before. It's always done, like, you've had your broader overarching themes and overarching story of stop Salem, save the world, unite humanity. You've had those things. That's been going on. Or get to Atlas. You've had those overarching story, story goals that we've been trying to get towards. But up until Volume 6, every single volume was very self-contained. It was a very, here's the story, here's what we're doing, here's what we're trying to achieve, we've done that, moving on. Or
I would argue that 4 and 5 kind of had that.
4 and 5 were more connected, absolutely. But they were outliers at the time, right? 4 and 5 being as connected as they were not the norm. And then even after 5, we went back to Volume 6, which again was very self-contained. Now we've gotten to Volume 7, and Volume 7 depended heavily on what Volume 8 did. Volume 8 may, in some regard, depend very heavily on what Volume 9 does. It's very different for them.
Yeah, but at the same time, this is kind of a problem that I would bring to some, ironically enough, considering our last Outcast episode, but this is like the same problem I would point out to the DCEU, that, just because a movie sets up the future doesn't really matter if the current movie I'm watching can stand on its own. If I have to wait for if I had to wait for answers to come a year later in order for me to understand what was going on in this particular outing, then no, this failed. This
I
failed.
I think right, but I bring it up right to mention like why does the Winter Maiden powers go to Winter? Why does
Okay.
Penny think of Winter, right? I think they do set a little bit of that up in Volume 7. They give Winter and Penny a moment here or there, but this comes back to I think the problem, but I do think this comes back to the problem you mentioned earlier of they have so many characters they introduced alone in this volume. And I think right if we would have had more time to see Winter and Penny connecting, to see why Penny would have thought of Winter in her last moments beyond just Winter, her name's Winter, and Winter Maiden, and the Winter Maiden powers were originally supposed to go to Winter. Beyond just that, why would Penny think of Winter, right? I think, you can read between the lines and say, hey, Penny thought of Winter because Penny viewed viewed both of them as close friends, and that Winter truly, affected Penny and a lot of Penny's outlook. But I think the
And I
same could be
will
said for
say
Winter, right? Penny
also,
affected a lot of Winter's outlook and changed a lot of Winter's viewpoints. But we don't really get a lot of that in Volume 8 of Winter and Penny communicating and talking with one another until that scene, right? That's
so
it.
again, this is what I mean with it feels like a first draft because it feels like they set up her giving it to Ruby,
I don't
but okay, I know maybe because I'm missing something from a previous season or something, maybe it's not necessarily that, but at the same time, if you're not gonna do it, don't put it in there.
I think what you're
Don't.
missing isn't something from a previous season. I think what you're actually missing, and again, this is another problem with RWBY, to be quite honest, is that the writers will outright say something outside of the show. The people who work on the show will outright say something
Yeah.
outside of the show that you can't really glean from the show itself. Like the fact that they've outright stated none of the main four girls, they've stated in the past, this could absolutely change, but they've stated in the past, none of the main four girls, Ruby, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, will ever get maiden powers. They don't intend to give them maiden powers.
Okay, so you know what? You just told me that this is news to me, and
And that's something they stated outside of the show.
yeah,
And
yeah.
granted, you
They
can't
said
state
it.
something like that inside of the show, right? But I do get why, without that information, something would feel the way it does to you, right?
Yeah, but so here's what I want to say because what the plot information you kind of gave me right now, this goes into something that shows called the Bible. This is like a part of the Ruby Bible.
Yeah.
There's a list. There's like a list of rules that the writers need to follow, and whether it's something they came up with or it's something that Monty had in mind, I don't know, but
Mhm.
the point is that Team Ruby not having maiden powers is a completely acceptable Bible rule. Okay,
Mhm.
but with that said, if you have that Bible rule, I'd expect you to one, don't put the idea in my head, which they did, and two, if you are gonna put the idea in my head, at least have some sort of an explanation as to why it can't happen. You can't just say because the Bible said so.
But the Bible said.
Well,
But
here's the thing: if all the defense they can give is because the Bible said so, then I'm sorry, this is not working. Because saying the Bible said so pretty much showed that you fucked up your own show.
personally, right, I think this is something that's very minor. I think, right, the idea isn't so much that Ruby could take the maiden powers. I think the idea and the focus there is supposed to be that Penny can't continue to fight the virus that was implanted in her by Watts because
Yeah,
Penny is
no,
robot.
no, no. This
And
part,
they need to
this
find a
part
way
is
to
fine.
save Penny. Honestly, I'm actually surprised that that is where like you have issues and not other stuff.
Well, I did mention that they did Blake dirty in this season, and she's basically pointless. She's air in this season. She
I think
doesn't do anything.
she does have that one good moment with Ruby at the Schnee Manor where, you hear her, Blake's fighting those Grimm, and Ruby's out unconscious, or supposedly out
Oh
unconscious, or
yeah,
recovering.
you mean the fight? You mean the fight where she gets her ass kicked and doesn't really get up until Ruby gets up
What
and
I mean though
saves her?
is the idea of that scene though was, Blake was telling Ruby how much she admires her and how much she respects
Yeah,
her.
I
That
get
part
it.
was a good moment, I felt.
It's a good moment with a terrible execution for me.
Oof.
Mhm. And again, I'm not saying this to criticize Blake. Again, she's my favorite character. I'm saying it because I'm hurt for her.
God
Like,
damn it, HC. You've really proven that I'm a fan, because I'm sitting here defending the show
yeah.
so much.
Well,
But
you're welcome.
right, like I want to make it clear. There are things I have issues with too, but not this one. So
Okay, and I have other issues, and there are actually things that I kind of enjoyed. But here's the thing regarding that whole idea of can we skip to kind of the last few episodes for a second? There's something
sure.
in there. So again, with that first drafting, which killed me because this is a little plot hole, and anyone with any kind of experience in writing could have picked up on this.
Uh-oh.
So they are talking to that genie, okay? That that male genie.
Ambrosius.
That's his name. And they tell him like, yeah, we need you to set all of these portals from these places to that place. And then there's like this mall of doors and something like that everyone is going into, and then they need to lead them to the right portal and stuff. Okay, good, fine. But then there's there's a husband, Ren is there, and is Nova there too? I think Nova is too.
Yeah.
So they are going through the portal through the destination portal. And there's a point where they just decide for 1 second to go back in. And then they realize that they can't because they set up with that genie that the doors are one way. Once you went through that door, you can't come back.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the fight scene there's a fight scene with Ruby and that girl with the umbrella. I forgot her name too. Sorry,
Neo.
But the mute.
Neo.
And this, Neo. Okay. So there's a point that Ruby kicks her into a portal, and then all of a sudden she comes back through that same portal. So it's like, hold on, aren't those one way?
So the description there is not great, I'll admit, but I think the idea there is that just the destination is one way. All the other portals that come from Atlas, you can go in and out of all over the place in Atlas. But once you go through final portal, that's one way.
So you see, this is like you're talking technicalities with me, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. But I'm saying that what I'm saying is that instead of kicking her through a portal, maybe Ruby just knocked her out cold for a few seconds, and then there'll be a twist that she got back up, because that saves you the whole thing. And I would believe that Ruby can actually knock her dead because she just technically killed Yang. So yeah, there's a lot of anger.
Spoilers.
We're in the spoilers section, dude.
But speaking of deaths, speaking of Ambrosius, what did you think about them deciding to, in order to fix Penny's problem, Penny becomes a real girl?
I guess. At this point, I suppose it's kind of like the only thing they could have done in order to keep this character alive, because this entire season was basically about trying to control her and use her to get to that relic and complete Salom's plans that way.
Mm-hmm.
So the only two options out of it is, one, let her die, or two, make her a real girl.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that the entire season was designed around controlling and using her. And her character arc.
I'm not
No,
saying
no,
that.
no,
I'm not
no.
saying
I
that
think
it's,
that's perfectly fine because I'm interested to hear what you think about Penny's actual death. Because
you
Penny
know,
dies.
yeah, Penny dies too, and it's not like she fell into that abyss because there's a
Well,
volume 9,
her
so
body
obviously,
fell into the abyss.
yeah, but the body though, the
Yeah.
body,
But
the,
what did you think
the
about her death? Because I have something that I would like to talk with you about, and I'm very curious to hear what you think. So, but yeah, what did you think about her death? How did that feel to you,
I felt
considering
kind
what
of
you've mentioned
sad.
earlier?
Yeah, so I felt kind of sad about that because I did actually like Penny.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's also a character they established for more than a few volumes. Just saying, wink, wink. But
Never gonna let it
but at the
go.
same, no, I'm not gonna let it go because I can't. Because again, I have characters I care about. So why do you think
Fair,
I'll suddenly
fair.
care for more? Like my heart can contain so many people.
I like
I can't.
Harriet, okay? I like Robin. The
I
others,
don't.
meh. You know, fine.
Well, but
Also,
I think I'm not saying this as a criticism or anything,
no,
but
no,
I
no, no,
think
no.
this might also just be you are a bigger Ruby fan than I am.
Oh, absolutely.
So when new character is introduced, you are kind of craving it. Like I think the best way the best example to kind of bring up, even though you're going to make fun of me that I'm bringing it into anything, but like I'll be a bit more softer towards a bunch of new Sonic characters being introduced out of
Well,
nowhere than
it,
you.
it's I'm going to say, right, it's not so much that well, it is that I do love new characters, but it's not so much that the fact that they're new, it's the fact of the possibilities and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I do write RWBY fan fiction because I
Mm-hmm.
am just that terrible of a person. No, I enjoy writing RWBY fan fiction. I enjoy writing fan fiction in general, and I enjoy reading fan fiction. There's a lot of good stuff out
Yeah.
there. And for me, as a fan of this who does enjoy fan fiction from it and what people write and reading all of that, right? For me, the possibilities there of something new and what that something new can represent and what that something new can do for more stuff I have to consume, right? It gives me more things that I can consume now as far as RWBY goes, right? I can read new fan fiction that people write and have something very new introduced within it, right? The idea of, oh, there's a Robin and Winter ship now because Robin exists now. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of fun to read. It's kind of enjoyable to see those two characters and their back and forth because of the character that we did get for them and how very different they are. To see Winter's very strict, no nonsense, and then Robin V very much the opposite of that in terms of leadership styles, right? In terms of how they might get along. So for me, it's very
Yeah.
much the possibilities there are very interesting,
Yeah.
but possibilities
But at
don't
the
make for
same time,
good viewing, right?
yeah, exactly. And this is something I do want to talk about with you. That at the same time, there's this phrase that I may have used it whenever we talked about other stuff, maybe Outcast or even in the Berkcast for a few times. There's this phrase that I'm usually saying. I'm not talking reviewing what could have been. I'm reviewing what's given for me.
Mm-hmm.
And while what could have been can be really interesting, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying like what you said about Rubin and Winter could work. Someone could probably make a great story out of it, and maybe the show staff can make something great out of it. If not in Ruby itself, maybe in a spin-off show. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, there's also the I don't necessarily care about what could have been if the character at its basis doesn't really interest me.
That's again, and that's completely and perfectly fair too, right? Like I think from a casual experience, it's not going to be as enjoyable, and you have to be someone who's really into it and really loves it and really wants to deep dive, right? But even then, that doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It's good for you, it's good for me, but it's good for people who enjoy that and want to deep dive into that and want to have those wider and broader experiences with those characters and all those possibilities. But If you're just taking it at face value,
This is
it's not as
actually
enjoyable.
this is actually something I actually wanted to ask you about, since you
Mhm.
are obviously in the fan base more. And what is the general fan base's reaction to like Robin, or or Harriet, or all of these characters that I just said I don't really care about? What is the general Ruby fandom view of these characters?
Everybody banging. Everybody having a relationship. If you want if you want that side of it, but
Well, that's every fandom.
being serious, though, giving you a serious answer.
Yeah,
From my experience, most of the fan base is like you. They don't really care. Some, they'll sit back and say, oh, like myself, right? I can sit back and tell you, I like Harriet, I like Robin. I don't have much more I can say than that, though. And majority of the fan base, again, like, I enjoy playing the characters off one another more, right? I enjoy the idea of playing Robin off of Winter, stuff like that, right? Like, you'll get stuff like that, but I would say a majority of the fan base are like you. They don't care. They don't think these characters were necessary. They wish they weren't there. Or they wish all of them would have died.
well,
Depends on who you talk to. And they don't mean that, and
well,
I don't mean that like they wish all of them would have died and I hate these characters, kill them off, get rid of them.
yeah,
I mean that in a leave them here in Atlas. Don't bring like, hey, a lot of the crew went to Vacuo, right? Currently you have everyone from Atlas in Vacuo. You have, except for Crow and the Aesops, right? And Robin, though, and Ironwood, I guess, if he's not dead, but we'll get to that. Like, those characters are still in Atlas. Everyone else went to Vacuo. So now you have like the Happy Huntresses, you have May, who is a trans character within the show.
yes.
I don't, and that's something that they're very clear about. You can pick that up. You can notice that, right? Because they're not, not obvious about that. But all we really know about her is that she's trans, and that's kind of it, right? We know that there's definitely some family history there, that she didn't get along with her family and stuff of that nature. We know that she cares about Faunus and the Faunus people, and generally she cares about the people, that she cares about the poor class being mistreated within Atlas, right? But that's all we know about her character. And looking at the other Happy Huntresses, we know virtually nothing. Now, again, again, like May and Fiona, two of the Happy Huntresses, and the other one whose honestly name I've forgotten. People enjoy them, people like them, but they just don't care. They're just not that important to them because they weren't given the time to be important characters, right? So the general fan base is like, would agree with you. Cut back on the amount of characters, less focus in on our main 7, our main group, and let's see where they take us. Let's develop them. It's okay to have those designed and named characters introduced, but I think there comes a point where you have to say like, hey, here's a character with a unique design. Here's their name, because they're kind of, they're important to this moment within the show. All right,
Yes.
moving past them now. Let's focus on our main group, right, and use them and do something with them. And I would say the majority of the fandom is in agreement with you there. They feel the same way.
Okay. So, and not necessarily because I want to feel that I'm not alone or anything. It's more just that because we did talk about the fact that you're a bigger fan than I am, and it's like maybe I'm missing something as a casual viewer. But if you say that overall these characters are not likable, then I'm not sure what to think now.
They're likable. It's just everyone's kind of in agreement that they're not important. There are plenty of people who would love for them to be more important, but
which again,
that's not a necessity.
Which again, maybe just run an idea here, but maybe do the Tales of Arcadia thing and like just give them their own show where you can actually develop them and give them the focus without taking away from Ruby and Weiss and all of the characters.
And they've actually done that already. There are RWBY novels out there. Well, there are RWBY novels out there. You remember Team Coffee, right? You remember Team Sun and Team Coffee, right? There's two RWBY novels out there for to focusing on them in vacuo, and it's expected that it's expected that, you know, volume 9, volume 10 in vacuo, you know, we'll see them, we'll get to meet them, and we'll have some dealings with them, and maybe some of the stuff they did in the novels will come up, you know, as little, like, hey, if you've read the novels, here's an Easter egg for you, right? But, you know, they have focused that, they've done that, and they've sat back and said, maybe we'll do more. Buy the books and we'll see. And it's like, God damn it.
Well, but you know something? So there you go. You have books talking about these people. You have books that kind of detail them in a bit more interesting way, and you can give them more focus. So why not just have that as an option to the people who don't care, and they can just watch the show for the characters they do care about, and just
because
leave the other.
Here's the RWBY, because the RWBY fandom is extremely contrarian, HC, and I shit you not, right? I kid you not.
Okay.
They want that in the show. The fandom wants that in the show. They don't want to have to go out and read the books. They want all of that in the show. And you can't do that. Now, not all of the fandom wants that in the show, but from my experience, a large part of them do want that in the show, and their response is, I'm not going to go out and read these. I don't care. It's not in the show. And it's like, pull out hair. But they want those characters expanded on. They want more with those characters. And when they give them something more with those characters, their response is, I don't care. It's not in the show. And it's like, pull out hair, pull out hair, pull out hair.
And that's actually something, you know, I'm not sure because there was no official announcement or anything, but let's say if like the books were adapted to a show, if the books were a spin-off or something, do you think people might care then?
Yes, because it's animated, because they get to see it.
Yeah, so why not just make a spin-off? Like,
because making a spin-off is expensive.
I suppose so, but at the same time, so is making an entire season, an entire volume, though, isn't it? And, you know, Rooster Teeth are obviously making more shows and stuff, so...
I mean, I don't think RT is against it, but I think they want to finish RWBY before they do any RWBY spin-offs beyond RWBY Chibi, which they've already done.
Which is fair.
And which has not aired and which has not had a new season in years now. Like, it finished at season 4, and it's not had anything since. And its season 4 ended back when, I think, volume 5 was a thing still, so they've not had anything for about 4 volumes now.
Okay, and you know, again, that's completely fair, but at the same time, also kind of like maybe, well, again, I think this is kind of the same problem. I'm just saying that they have this kind of end goal that Monty set for them, which they're just afraid to reach because, again, this is going to be like a 9 volume show now. And regardless of volume 9 being shorter or longer or
it's
whatever,
worth mentioning, they've said that they intend to end it around volume 12. That was the that was the intent years ago. Like, shouldn't be more than 12 volumes.
Well, there you go. There you go right there. So this means, do I have to wait 4 more volumes in order for seeing one storyline finished? Do I have to see 4 more volumes of basically characters not really going anywhere? Do I have to see 4 more volumes of fake outs and people just being stuck in the same place they are and not willing to take next steps because that's not the end? Maybe I could be completely wrong and eat my hat when volume 9 comes out. Like, please prove me wrong. Prove me that I'm wrong. But these 2 last volumes are just leaving me with this feeling that they are just dragging it at this point. And if you don't have enough material to reach 12 volumes, just end it. Really.
Personally, I think it's not so much that they're trying to drag it out. It's not so much that they're trying to avoid getting to that end goal and that end point. I think what it is, right? That, like, looking at Bumblebee, right? I think, you know, you've had 8 volumes up to this point, and you've had, especially for people who love Bumblebee, they've had so much fan content, right?
Mhm.
And you've experienced a little bit of that fan content, if I'm not mistaken, at least art-wise, anyways. I think, right?
And you know, those two cosplayers I met at a con once.
Fair, fair. So I think the issue is they had all of that build up already. It was minor, but it was there. And now they're trying, and again, as I've said before, right? RWBY has been a learning experience for them, for everyone involved. You've seen them from
Yeah.
Volume 1 to Volume 8 now grow and learn and get better at writing, animating, all, lighting, all of the stuff that goes into making a show, right? They've gotten better at it
Yes.
slowly over time. And I think what you're seeing them try to do right now isn't so much as baiting people, isn't so much as leading people on, isn't so much as avoiding getting to the point. It's them trying to put in what a show would have had from the start, that build up, and forgetting that they did already have some of that build up there.
And that
It's just
is
that build up
exactly
wasn't very, like, it's the past build up was kind of vague. You could have read it either way, and now they want to give you build up that you cannot read any other way, and this is them getting closer and becoming, and going towards that relationship, getting towards that relationship and being in that
And
relationship.
if you remember, this is a problem I said back in Volume 7, which feels like they didn't plan it up until that point. But if you were to tell me, like in terms of Bumblebee specifically, if you told me that after this Volume 6 finale, they officially got together, I would have bought that. I would have legit bought that because I felt like they actually bonded and grew closer and would actually have romantic feelings for each other considering everything they went through. I would have bought that. But then Volume 7 came around and it's like, hey, you know what? We actually want to make them a ship now, so we need to start from the basics. Suddenly, Yang can flirt. Suddenly, there are just implications, but not actual progression. So, like, we took a step back because they are trying to do this the legit way.
And I think that's the problem, right? I think in order to try and do it the right way and the way that it should be done writing-wise, they've kind of forgotten everything they've already set up before, even if it wasn't very straightforward.
Yeah. And again, this is also the same problem with Nora and Ren, I think, that they had their own thing going on, which I said, if you would have told me in that one episode that they start dating, I would be like, yeah, I can see that. I can see how they would reach that point. But they decided to hold it so that Nora could find more about herself. But it's like, I don't think it's a good excuse at this point. Like, again, this is 8 volumes of this character being a part of a team and learning and developing, and it's like they're not allowing her to go that way because it feels like they never planned for them to. And all of a sudden now, when it was an option, it's like, okay, we're back to the drawing board, and you can't really go back to the drawing board where you already drew on the entire thing.
For Nora and Rin, at least, I can, for me personally, I'm willing to be more forgiving because before now, there was very little thought on Nora and Rin separately, right? It was just a lot of, when Nora and Rin was mentioned, it was Nora and Rin. There's no Nora and Rin. There's just Nora and Rin, or Rin and Nora, There was no separation between the two. And so I'm willing to forgive it more because it always did feel like Nora didn't have much of a character outside of Rin, to me at least. So I personally am willing to forgive it more, and I want to see where they go with her as a character. Right?
Okay, that's fair.
But that doesn't mean what you've stated isn't also fair, right? Because I do get where you're coming from. I do, that previous build-up is still there. Those previous moments are still there. And I don't blame them for wanting to do more with it and go further with it and actually give it the attention and give it that, TLC that it needs. But the fact that they're doing it now, they have all that other previous stuff going on for them.
Again,
and
I think
it just feels like we're prolonging the point, right? I do get where you're coming from.
the best way I can describe it is I have no idea. I have no problem with them doing that. The problem is that they already did.
But I think, right, again, like the idea is they've already done it, but it wasn't done as well, and now they realize we can do so much better, and they want to do so much better now. But the problem is we as viewers, we as fans, we as anyone have already seen what you've already given us. Sure, it may not be as good as what you can give us now, but we've already had that. So you can't just in the middle of your show, erase that. You can't take that back, so you have to work off of what you got and then go forward from there. The problem is that's not easy to do, especially when some of that stuff is, to a degree, slim pickings for people, in terms of character development, in terms of relationship development. There isn't a lot there. It's hard to work off of that. So you want to give yourself more to work off for the future, but in order to do so, you do have to make it seem like, hey, we're retreading the same ground. We're doing it for a good reason, but we're still retreading the same ground.
And this is exactly the point where I said, again, I'm not sure what Monty left them with or that if a lot of the thing was improvised. Again, I don't really know. All we can go of are, crew tweets, which can kind of maybe show us the way. But the fact of the matter is, I just think a lot of the things, they didn't really have an end game for any of this, like at least in terms of character relationships or character growth and stuff. It just feels like we're stuck because we don't really know where to go next, and when we have some sort of an idea, we don't really know how to get there. Because you know what, in regards to Bumblebee for a second, if we may, let me bring back She-Ra, okay? Netflix She-Ra and the Princess of Power, okay? This show lasts 5 seasons, and from day one, from episode 1, you are kind of getting the vibes about Adora and Catra, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the thing is that the reason they never really did anything, they didn't really take that step, is because all of a sudden in the same episode where they address those things, they put the two characters in different positions, in different sides. They are suddenly enemies, and while there is build up to it, that they can't get together because the world they live in and their environments won't allow them to be together. And the end game was for them to actually get together by the end, because that is the conclusion of that show's arc. I don't think RWBY does that. Not necessarily in terms of ships, but also in terms of just the entire thing in general. I think they're just kind of writing as they go along, even if they have the slightest bit of knowledge regarding where they're heading.
Interesting. I'm not sure I entirely agree, but it's a valid point.
And that's fine. You don't have to. I'm just saying where I'm coming from.
But getting back to Volume 8, we sidetracked a bit here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm interested to hear once more your thoughts on Penny's death.
Yeah, we actually started talking about this, and we tangented into other topics about
the Outcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, the Outcast. Welcome aboard. But regarding Penny's death, so I think I said that I actually felt a bit sad about it, because again, Penny is a character I like, and again, the season was pretty much about. There was sort of the one thing the season kind of focused on is her importance. Like every side wanted her. Like Salem wanted her to get the artifact. Ironwood side kind of wanted her dead because that would stop Salem. And
Ironwood wanted her to get the artifact as well, to launch the city into the sky.
Yeah, okay. Point is, though,
but everyone wanted her, yeah.
Yeah, everyone wanted her for that reason, so she was kind of the centerpiece of it. So, and so it was, I was actually invested in her story. But at the same time, with her dying, even though
Sorry
it
about that.
is,
Loud
yeah,
noise.
but
Sorry about that.
no problem. I didn't hear it. But so with that, with her being such a middle focus and everything, uh, there is kind of a metaphor here that when she dies, the core of the season died too. But at the same time, I'm not really sure if there was anything else they could have done with her after she served the purpose, if you know what I mean.
Hmm. I understand you. So
Yeah, and but so
Penny's.
she
Oh, go ahead. Go
she
ahead.
did help. All the best way I can describe it is that she did help. She did help out. I'm sorry to see her go, but at the same time, I'm not going to lose my mind over it.
Hmm. Well, so Penny's death within the fandom is a much different story to tell, because,
Shoot.
well, I'm curious to hear your opinion. A lot of
Yes.
people, in fact, from my experience, a majority of people within the fandom feel that Penny's death was suicidal ideation.
Huh.
And they say this because Penny makes multiple comments about when, Watts infects her with that virus to go and unlock the artifact and then self-terminate, right, when she's still a robot, right?
Yes.
A lot of people make reference to the fact that, she did tell Ruby, she did tell a few others to kill her, to end it and save everyone by killing her, right? She told people to do that. And so people look at those scenes and they hear those comments and they see her death here, and a lot of people attributed it to suicidal ideation. And were
Well,
very hurt that
obviously,
Rooster Teeth would do that.
hmm, like they hurt by the just by the implication that she wanted to kill herself.
Not so much that, they felt that that Penny's suicide was glorified here, right? That she did the good
Hmm.
thing by killing herself, right? That is one of
That
their bigger problems with it.
Yeah, but that's the thing that she doesn't really though.
See,
Like,
so
mm,
I found it interesting that you brought up the fact that Penny's kind of whole narrative here is everyone wants to control her, because that is kind of
mhm.
Penny's character arc, that everyone wants to control her, but she wants to make her own choices. She wants to be able to choose for herself. She wants to be seen as a real girl. And she is in fact already a real girl, considering she's more human than a lot of the people around her, right?
She's basically the Pinocchio.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Like that's where her story and draws. That's where her story draws from, right? But a big thing for her is wanting to be able to make her own choices and control and have control of her own life, right? And everyone wants to, in this volume, take that away from her. They want to control her instead and tell her to do what they want her to do, to make choices for her, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, for my take, right, and this is just my opinion,
Yes.
I don't think Penny's death is suicidal ideation, because in her death, right, she is dying in that moment, right? When she asks John to finish her off before Cinder gets
Yeah.
everything, she is already dying in that moment, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like it's a person being able to, not wanting to die, but choose how they die in a moment that many people don't get a lot of choice in. And I
It's
feel that's very,
acceptance.
yeah, it's acceptance, and also her, in her acceptance saying, I know this is going to happen. I want to choose how I go out, not let someone else choose for me how I die once more,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's important for her character. And because of that, I don't necessarily see it as suicidal ideation, because the moments where she does ask people to kill her to stop the virus and stop her from doing what the virus wants her to do and allowing Salem to win, right? She does listen to people and take offers that give her the chance to still continue living, right? Even
Hmm.
when they're in the portal room, right? Like Ruby and Co tell her, go through the portal, get out of here. Don't stay. You need to live, right? You need to get out of here. She chooses to come back because that's her choice. She wants to protect people she cares about. She wants to be
Yes.
there for people. So I don't feel like
Hmm.
her choosing to come back was her choosing to try and kill herself or to sacrifice herself for anyone. I think it's more so she wants to protect the people close to her, and she knew she could do it, right? And she felt like she could do it, and so she made a choice. Was it the right choice? No. And I don't think they set it up to be the right choice, but I don't, there's a great write-up that is from a person that I know within the RWBY community that you can find on Reddit, and I'll try and link it in the description below the video. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel people who do say Penny's death is suicidal ideation aren't wrong. Let me be extremely clear about that. If you feel Penny's death is suicidal ideation, if it hurt you because of that and you felt like Rooster Teeth was glorifying suicide in how they represented Penny's death, you are not wrong. Just because I might disagree with you, you are not wrong here. I do not think you are wrong, right? And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of good points that these people have made that I have read, and that I'm super glad these people have decided to share these opinions, right? And how it made them feel and talk about that, right? Because it's been extremely interesting to read for me, because I will admit I am someone who hasn't had a lot of first-hand personal experience with suicide, with depression, with suicidal thoughts and stuff of that nature, right? So for me to be able to read thoughts from people who feel this way, it's interesting. It's extremely interesting. And I'm glad you've shared it, and you are not wrong. Your opinion is still absolutely valid. We just have very differing interpretations of what happened, and that is perfectly fine.
Yes.
But it has, I don't want to necessarily say it's caused a divide within the community, because I don't feel it has, but there is definitely two opposing thoughts here. And you know how fandoms will be. It's been interesting to read some of it. Some of it, it's just been people being assholes, but it's been interesting to read some of it. And I was curious what you thought about it as a more casual viewer.
I didn't. I don't think I got like that in glorified suicide or anything. At least not, because like you said, it didn't feel like she really wanted it. Like she did. Like it's not like she told anyone. She didn't self-destruct for one, and she didn't. And it's not like she was in perfectly good health before she told John to do it. It was just like she knew there was no reason, there was no way she's getting out of this. Even though she's a robot, she could be fixed. But considering the evacuation and stuff, maybe it was just better to, to let it be, to just be, to not be a burden to the evacuation and the entire operation that they tried pulling off. So, in my opinion, I didn't get it. I get why people would think that, but I personally don't agree.
That's fair. Like, for me, right, I think if I attribute the idea of suicide to anyone, it would be Winter, right? In terms of how Winter puts forward her character and how willingly she sacrifices what she wants, what her desires are, what her dreams are, and how readily she says, like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is all I'm meant to do. This is all I'm worth, right? Like, that's very much Winter's mindset. But you don't get people mentioning that in regards to Winter, and I feel like that's because Winter is quote-unquote military in this regard, and I feel like a lot of people look over that and ignore that fact, but I think I would more attribute that to Winter than I would Penny, personally. And I think it's very poignant that Winter's the one who is unable to do the very thing that she's kind of put forward as, this is what I would do, of sacrificing anything and everything about herself, because that's all she's worth, right? In comparison to Penny, who's told all the time that she's worth so much more, and that she is extremely valued, and she's shown that she's valued by those around her and is worth a lot to everyone around her, beyond just wanting her for her maiden power or the relic, right? But I think this once again comes back to that problem that you mentioned earlier of there's so many moving parts that they didn't really get to truly focus on those things beyond a few key moments. And so I understand why, if you came out of this feeling that this represents suicidal ideation or anything else in that matter, because there's not enough there to really set forth. I feel like what's there doesn't really give you a concrete, this is what we're doing, or this is what we're doing. You could very well easily go either way in terms of your opinion and how you feel about it. And that does create a bit of a problem, right? That does create a, where do you, Rooster Teeth, stand on what you're trying to put forward here? Because one of these ways, suicidal ideation and potentially glorifying suicide, is definitely not good. Now, Volume 9 could fix a lot of that, but it's still not good that you potentially did that if that's what you were trying to do. But I assume it wasn't, so it's not a great look when you didn't quite get your vision across as well. Now, again, right, you're always going to have people come in, watch it, and they're going to have their own interpretations too, and that's going to cloud some judgment, and that's going to make people see things because of their personal experience, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. So you're never going to be able to 100% get your vision across, but you can do your best to make it as clear as possible.
Also, there's this thing, entire that of the other kind of thing, where, you put something out there, even if you didn't intend it to have any kind of implication regarding anything, some people could see it as such.
Absolutely, right. Mm-hmm. And your goal as the author, as the creator, is to, if you want your vision to be known, is to try and get it across as clear as you possibly can. But to also understand that there's still going to be people out there who see insert thing here as insert thing here, and there's nothing you can really do to change that except by telling people you're wrong, but whatever, and just shrug and go on.
Ironically enough, it's what the people behind certain reasons why we're doing while that show was on the air.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's an interesting point, and that's why I set the fence on this one. And I think, again, I disagree. I think this is... Oh, go ahead.
Like this, I just want to say that this is I personally disagree with this. I do want to say that that I can see why people would look at it like this, and I assume that one of the reasons they do is because it might remind them of a tough spot in their own lives, or of a friend or family member who might have actually done this, and they. So I am not, just because I don't agree, it doesn't mean I don't understand where you're coming from, and it's completely legit.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Like it's a very personal experience, it's a very personal thing, and it's going to change your outlook when you see things that remind you of that, right? Absolutely. And that's why I sit back and say, I'm glad those people shared that. I absolutely thank you for sharing it, and I don't think you're wrong. I absolutely think you are right with that interpretation, that you are not wrong in how you see things, right? I may not completely agree with you, but you're not wrong.
Yes.
We've talked so much about other stuff. We've not really talked about the volume in full. You mentioned characters who, I will say, right? You mentioned character bloat in this volume. I will say, though, I do feel like the new characters we did get, like kind of Willow, kind of Whitley, even though Whitley we've seen a bit more of before, right? The Aesops, the Happy Huntresses, Robin, and all of that, right? I do feel like, even though there was character bloat, I do feel like these characters had their stories. They are done. I think we are going to probably get a bit more of Willow and Whitley because they're in Vacuo, but I do think that, their story is more or less done. Their story is, as good as it could be, right, for those smaller side characters. And I do enjoyed what they did with Willow a lot here, right? And once more, I enjoy it even more because of the possibilities behind it. But that's just me.
Yes.
So the big thing, though, what did you think about seeing, our main team, Jean and Neo, all falling into the abyss when they were told, do not fall? And then we're shown a scene of a giant tree on an island.
Here's exactly what I think. I don't see the point if we know they're not going to die.
But what if they are, though? I think...
Well, honestly, here's my point of view on this. We knew that it was going, supposedly, right? Supposedly, we did know that there was going to be another volume when this was coming out. Volume 9 was announced. With that, the show kind of killed all possibility that this was gonna have some sort of an impact. And with that said, if you know that you're not actually going to kill off the characters, why bother?
Well, I think right. The point here is more so that this is going to be a new kind of journey, if you will, for them. This is going to continue on their story from this point, and we're going to kind of see what happens with these 6 characters by themselves, right? And we're going to have a more focused story of these 6 characters in this new area. And a lot of people are saying, right, that this area they've fallen into is the quote-unquote afterlife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is like the plane where, souls go when they die. Looking at like giant tree that reminds people of, the giant tree in Norse mythology, right? And how it connects the different planes and stuff like that. And so a lot of people are saying, oh, we might meet Summer here. Oh, we might meet Pyrrha here, right? Pyrrha again here, and John has a thing, right? Oh, we might meet Roman again here. And some people are very like, about that too. So it's very much take your pick. I think it'll be interesting to see if that's the case and to see what they do with these characters, because I think what they're going to do is kind of a telling of, reaffirming, right? Reaffirming what they want to do and what their plan is, and reaffirming, that keep moving forward, that hopeful, that optimistic attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see where they go, because once more, right, it feels like Volume 9 is going to be the end of their arc. And
yes,
for this, 3-volume arc. And it's interesting to see them take on this somewhat new storytelling theme or idea for RWBY, which is more of an arc structure where you have beginning, middle, and end.
Maybe that way the show would actually go somewhere. Who knows?
Oof. That burn.
Well, what can you do? But with that said, I suppose we don't really have any other information about Volume 9 except for the fact it's coming sometime.
Mm-hmm. Anything that stood out to you that you really enjoyed about this volume?
The animation, for one. Animation was really good. And I suppose, while even if I don't necessarily care about the characters, the fight scenes are still well choreographed, they're still well animated. Whenever there's a fight scene, it's usually a good one.
Any story or character moment that stood out to you, though?
Less so this time around.
Oof.
Sorry.
No, that again, it's fair, right? Like, not everything's going to agree with everyone. For me personally, I'll agree. Like the volume, the animation, the fight scene stuff has always been exceptional within RWBY. I don't think there's ever really been a bad fight scene to watch within RWBY, right? There have been stuff that's been better than others, but still yet, like the bar for quality has been always fairly high, and they've just continued to raise it, I feel, for the most part. I think for me, if I picked something that I enjoyed character-wise, it was... I really enjoyed Willow a lot in this, and I enjoyed her especially when we see... I love how they showed Willow trying to be like the mom and trying to be there for a minute for everyone in the Schnee Manor when the power goes out. And then to see her hearing, fighting going on, and to know that Grimm are around, and to kind of see the power go out and just kind of slowly lose that cool, right? And slowly lose that, that calmer side to herself, and kind of fall back into old habits, and immediately just, I can't be here, I can't do this, and she runs back to her room to get more, alcohol, right? I kind of really loved and enjoyed that, and yet because it kind of shows, and then you also, right, see her go in to save Whitley with her own summon, right? I love the fact that it shows that Willow probably has a bit of PTSD going on in a very subtle but very identifiable way of something happened to her in the past and she just cannot handle it, right? I very much enjoy that. I very much enjoyed that a lot. Willow was definitely, for when she was there, personally for me, was a bit of a show stealer. I really enjoyed what they gave her character-wise. It was very subtle, but it was still very much front and center, I felt. Yeah. So I very much enjoyed that. And Also, just getting to see Salem finally fight and how she fights too was very interesting and very entertaining, and very much I feel they nailed the idea of an immortal who can't die, who doesn't give a shit what you do to her. She doesn't need to protect herself because she knows I'm coming back, so whatever. Because you quite literally see, like,
Yeah,
Yang
you know what? That was a
blows
cool
her up,
moment.
right? And she just regenerates herself, and she just lets Yang absolutely blow her up, right? Doesn't care. Zero shits given. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff we didn't mention, like with Oscar and Hazel and Emerald switching to the good guy's side, it seems, right? And,
Yeah.
Watts' death too, right? And just everything with Ironwood, right? Like, Ironwood, great, for the most part, I feel very good seeing his kind of fall, right? Seeing him go from where he was to where he is now and potentially being dead, right? Like, again, there's a lot of good stuff here, I feel. It's just, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot to unpack. And unfortunately, some of it does get lost in the mess, I feel. And so I will agree with you, right? There is maybe and hopefully, since the next volume is going to be shorter, since they're going to have potentially less to focus on, maybe you'll see them do like, hey, let's cut to people in Vacuum. What are they doing? All right. But our main focus is going to be on this new island area, potentially. Hey, people got their beach episode. So, maybe that'll be the main focus. And so it'll be interesting to see if that is the main focus. One, how that finishes off our potential 3 arc structure here. And 2, can they really, nail in and center in on that, smaller setup, right? And can they do that, and how well can they do it? Because in my opinion, when they write character moments, they write damn good character moments, in my opinion. I've said it before in past volumes. When you see them do one-on-one interactions, especially with characters you don't see interact that much, they do it damn well, in my opinion. I just wish they did way more of it. That's what I said back then, and I stand by it.
It depends on the characters for me, but when it works, no doubt.
No, absolutely fair. Yeah, absolutely fair. My one hope going into Volume 9, and this is my one prediction, since they're trapped in this alternate space, alternate area, alternate thing, right? Super hoping that the only way they get out is by Raven coming in to help them out. I cannot wait for that, because currently Crow is still an Atlas completely out of the picture. I'm really hoping we do a Raven comes in to help them, and she takes over the mentor role of Crow for a bit, and we get to see Yang and Raven and Ruby and Raven interaction. I'm super hoping for that. We might not get it, but that's my hope going into Volume 9. That's my prediction and hope going into Volume 9. I'm really, really wanting it. Give me more Raven, please.
Well, here's what I want to say regarding my Volume 9. Since you said it might be shorter, considering
no, it's not might. It absolutely is going to be one of the shorter volumes they've done. They've absolutely said that. Like, that's a fact.
Okay, so if
unless
it's
that changed, could have, but yeah.
But if it's really going to be a shorter season, then I hope that the entire season isn't just these guys getting out of the afterlife. Like, I don't need an entire season just for that whole thing to, to end. Like, give it 2 episodes and move on.
Really? I thought that would have been something you would have enjoyed more, because it's more focused on these characters.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a whole season to get one thing done. While I want more focus on these characters, I also want more focus on them actually being relevant.
That's fair. Okay, interesting.
I
think you're going to be disappointed, but we'll see.
Well,
right? We'll see.
We can only hope. So I suppose that's it.
Yeah, unless you have anything else to add.
No, I pretty much said all I have to say. So
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that has been all for us here at the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. These are our thoughts on RWBY Volume 8. Please, if you have anything you would like to share, add, disagree with us on, or agree with us on, do so in the comments below the video. And get in touch with us at our Twitter account, which is Berkcast with capital B, capital C. You can get in touch with us there and talk with us there and see basically all of our uploads and when we upload and stuff like that. If also you can follow us on our Tumblr account. We also update there about when we upload, and that is Berkcast Team. And you can also get in touch with us there, ask us questions, all sorts of great things. With that said, that's been the end of our show. We hope you enjoyed. I have been your host, Wolf, and I have been joined by
HC.
And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.